The story that I told you both about earlier on today, and it's all sort of interconnected to some situations that are going on at Ajax. As everybody knows, Ajax have, sorry, I clicked on the wrong button. Ajax have suspended their current CEO. I believe his name is pronounced Alex Gross. I think that's how it's pronounced, over insider trading allegations, to which he bought something in the region of 17,000 shares just before his appointment as the CEO. That's being investigated. Ajax have suspended him indefinitely. I was talking to a couple of journalists about that today and some other stories. And what came up, and I'll read out what they sent through to me, and I want to get your views on this. So they mentioned that they said that the club's supervisory board say that more than 17,000 shares were bought a week before he intended to be appointed as the new his announcement was due. So he obviously knew that he was going to be announced as the CEO, then he bought these shares. In conjunction with this at the moment, what has come through from a number of Dutch journalists is that his old agency, SEG, and the son of Eric Ten Hag, Nigel Ten Hag, are all under investigation in a corruption probe, which also involves Eric Ten Hag, suggesting that there is a bit of dodgy dealings and some questionable transfers that are going on, some of which that involve Manchester United, and that this current investigation is underway, and more is going to come to light soon about this. There's no real specific detail, but this leads back to an article that came out late summer, early September, which spoke about Manchester United staff having real concerns over Eric Ten Hag's agents on transfer dealings and the influence that they all had. And what I've been told by a number of journalists today is that these stories of some dodgy dealings from the current Ajax CEO, his former agency, Ten Hag's son Ten Hag, there could be an element of this being intertwined moving forward. And as a Man United fan, this is horrible news, whether you want the manager to stay or not. You don't want the idea of player transfers between your club and Ajax having any kind of dodginess about them in any capacity, but it does need to be discussed. It does need to be called out, in my opinion, as do any kind of allegations of this level. But with Man United being that absolute mess that we have been for the last decade, Dan, does any of this surprise you?
Surprise is probably the wrong word to use for me, because Manchester United, I don't know what more can go wrong at this football club right now, man. Like, literally everything that is being spoken about in a negative light is to do with Manchester United. And it was weird the last time we spoke about Kobe Manu being in the England side. It's probably the only time we've spoken positively about Manchester United all season. It has been an absolute shambles from top to bottom. And if this is the case, it's just going to get even worse. Now, what's mad about this is these Manchester United signings that potentially have been made, whether you call it fraudulently or not without investigating it properly, I wouldn't mind so much if it was like a Manchester City situation where they've actually got a load of trophies to show for it. Like, oh my God, this 115 meant they've got all these trophies. Manchester United have got awful signings to show for what could have been corrupt. So we're looking at the players like Anthony and looking at players like Amrabat and these guys that are being thrown out there. Some of them will work, don't get me wrong. I think Martin is actually a good player. I think that obviously Rasmus Højlund looks like he could be a good centre forward for the future. We've certainly got some good players there, but let's be real. We're looking at this situation, and yeah, we're all smiling because this is madness, though. Like, this is actually, I don't know what more can go wrong at the moment. And we have to look at it properly, and there's not enough evidence for me to see in a few articles yet to know what the hell has gone on, and we'll have to see more evidence when it's put in front of us. But as you say, you'd be worrying from a Manchester United perspective. It is literally a football club that needs to be started again completely. It is mad. Like, I was looking at the side the other day, like, real talk, and I was thinking, your best 11, how many of them would you have to upgrade on? Quite a few. It's not like, wow, you've got 11 players there that are great. It's just the squad depth. Then you look at the management structure. That's all being replaced at the moment. The stadium, people are saying it's falling down. You want it started again. I honestly believe that it is a project for someone not to just come in and experiment a bit. This is for someone. This is a massive, massive project. It's one of the biggest football clubs in the world, and it's got to be started again. And I look at this kind of stuff on top of it. It just adds to the absolute mess that has been the football club in the last few years, man.
Absolutely. And what I would say is this, and this is only me reading between the lines based on the conversations that I've had today and the articles I've read. I don't think it's necessarily that we the corruption is we've got players that we shouldn't have been able to get. It's maybe the amount of money that Man United have ended up paying. So there have been some rumors that it's a bit strange that we could have bought Anthony for about 30 odd million. We ended up paying 90 odd million. There's thoughts that maybe we've paid more than we should have done for, say, Rasmus Højlund. And that way agents, the son of our manager, etc., are earning more money out of those deals than they should have done. So it's not so much that we bought players that other clubs were going to get, but we paid someone a backhander to change their minds or anything along those lines. It's more a case of people essentially like creaming money off the top of Manchester United amongst other things that are going on. And for me, that's if the manager has been involved in that, if he's aware of any of that, forget the football for a moment. That's beyond sackable. I'm actually happy with Rasmus Højlund as an example, who's a player that's a player whose deal's under the microscope. But if we've ended up paying £20 million more for him just to give a couple of agents an extra bump, or just to make a club more money, or to make somebody else more money, and the manager's aware of that, you've got to go. And what's really interesting was this line that was sent through to me. And I want to read this out to you because this, for me, is what makes me feel a little bit more comfortable about it. That Man United, we all know that Ten Hag's been taken off of transfer activities, and the reports are going to, when all these surface, are going to show that one of the biggest reasons that Ineos removed him almost instantly from being involved in transfers is part of this investigation. And their words to me were, Ineos will pull up every single stone, every single carpet, and open up every single cupboard. That's what they do. It does feel like there has been almost everybody kind of filling their pockets and getting out of it what they want, as opposed to looking at it as club first. And if we've ended up overpaying for 4 or 5 players, that's another player that you can never buy because you can't ever get that money back. So for me, I want this to be investigated. And if we've done any legitimate wrongdoing in terms of cheating the systems, then you punish Manchester United. If anybody internally has been screwing us over by paying too much money for players that we could have got cheaper, them and everybody around them has got to go. And if it really is that level of fraud, that's called I don't want to sound like a grasp, but it's called a police. Like, for me, that's thieving off the fans as far as I'm concerned. So look, I'm not about protecting anybody in this. I'm about protecting Man United. And if they've done this wrongdoing, they've hurt my football club. And unlike a lot of people whose clubs are under investigation, I want the people that have damaged my club to be punished and prosecuted because you're hurting us. And that's not a dig at you, LB. I've never
seen LB smile.
Is it not? Is it not?
It's not a dig at you. I'm just saying, because a lot of people in the comments saying, will you be consistent? Yes, I will want everyone who's done this to my club punished. The club we punished alongside of it, but then you remove these people, I'll condemn these people, and then we move on, because I don't want my club to be involved in any type of cheating, whether it hurts us or benefits us, because that's not what sport's about for me personally. And I know LB agrees with that, because it'll be like that with his club if it goes wrong. He might just not. My brother just might not want to admit it right now. But yeah, I'm. What do you make of all this, LB?
Well, I mean, if it's true, strip the Premier League titles that Ten Hag's won, strip the Champions Leagues that he's won, strip all the titles that United have won. This is a disgrace. Now, listen, I think I don't know what's gone on for the year yet. Obviously, it's early days on this sort of what's happened. All I would say is, right, and I think I speak for quite a lot of people here, is that when this Ten Hag geezer come in and he spends 95 million euros on Anthony, eyebrows were raised. Serious, yeah? Seriously raised. Like, what is going on there? He then went back in for Lisandro Martinez, 60 million euros. That's worked out quite well. Well, it's worked out all right, I suppose. And I just thought to myself, that's a bit of a madness. You know what I mean? He's going straight back to Ajax. You know what I mean? The club that he's just left and spent best part of 160 million euros on 2 players. Like, what's going on here? And especially Anthony. I mean, nobody in the world thought he was worth that. And in fact, I'm pretty sure there was reports out that, like, the year before they was considering selling him for like 30 or something like that. So it's I guess Dan's kind of right. Yeah, Pops is kind of right on this, in that United have had no proper structure at the football club. They've let Ten Hag come in and buy players, which is wrong. Yeah, that era of football is over. Gone are the days where the managers pick every player that the club signs, because that's not how football works now. Football's short term. You build the club with the players, you build the style, and then you bring the coach, not the manager, the coach in to coach the players. If the coach can't do it, the coach goes. You sack the coach, you get another coach who works in a similar style to what you're looking for. United was still, in the old ages of letting Ten Hag buy all the players. Do you know what I mean? Which is strange, and that's another problem they're going to have if they sack him. Who's going to want half of these players that he's bought? So I don't know, man. It's interesting, and of course, like I say, if something's gone on here with the transfers, then it needs to be looked into. And from like the people for United who have signed this off, they might be culpable as well, because like who's doing the due diligence? Like you said, like they basically robbed from the football club. So if it is true, of course.
The only thing I will say on the back of that, though, the only thing, sorry, Tal, the only thing just quickly I'll say on the back of that is for me, I understand what LB's saying, and he's right. Football's completely changed. I don't know that eyebrows were massively raised when Ten Hag was bringing his Ajax team that he was fairly successful with over there to Manchester United. Where the eyebrows were raised was how he couldn't get the best out of any of them. And it was like, got to the stage now, it's like,
Anthony, bro, you don't think eyebrows were raised at 90 million euros?
I think
the eyebrows were raised because it was only a few. Initially, we thought, okay, it's a lot of money. He was getting bigged up. And then I think it was only a few months later, it all came out that we could have signed him a few weeks earlier for 35 million. And the Man United recruitment team, who were ignored, this shows our structure is terrible, said we would advise to not pay more than 25 million. Ten Hag has convinced the board that it's okay to pay 90 odd million pounds for him. Crazy.
So this is my point, right? This is my point, because you're right, eyebrows raised on prices. Totally agree with that. In terms of you're bringing players over from Ajax, I don't think eyebrows are raised with that, because that's what you do, right? And the same as Arsene Wenger back in the day. I know we're comparing eras here, but he was buying the players from Monaco over to Arsenal. He knew Nicolas Anelka was the next best thing. He knew Petit from Monaco. He knew Henry from Monaco. He knew Vieira from his early days. So that can happen, right, with management. The problem you've got is when you bring that back to it, there is absolutely no same page for anybody at that board in the structure of Manchester United that are okay. They're just going, go on and mate, do what you can with these Ajax lads. And that's the problem you've got, because when he isn't doing what do you do then? Now you're stuffed. It's like, well, we're going to have to go and get another manager in and get another load of players now. Like, that is the problem you've had at Manchester United, mate. And then he's been allowed to do that. And now there's a complete corruption with it all. And they're like, so 35 million, now it's turned into 95 million euros. What's happened there? Who's been getting this money? Has he been saying, and they're going to let us have Anthony, but I need 20 million. This guy needs 20 million, but we'll pay the 30 million titles for it. We don't know what's happened now. It's mad. And then to allow this to happen is shocking from Manchester United in terms of how it's just to be allowed to give the keys to Ten Hag. Mad, absolutely mad.
Totally agree. And as I say, I don't think this is the club signing players with brown envelopes and doing dodgy deals to get the yeses. I think this is as you say, the keys to the door being potentially given to Ten Hag, his agency Sports Entertainment Group. Now, the CEO of Ajax, who has sort of overseen some of these deals or been involved with the club, he was no longer he was the co-owner of that agency. I think he gave that up so he could become this chairman. But at the same time, let's live in the real world and not what it says on paper. He's probably still making some money out of that agency in some way, shape, or form. Listen, if I'm the CEO of this and we can get 90 million for this player or this amount of money for this individual, it's all. I just feel. You look back at some of the stories, you look back at the overpaying on players, you look back at the obsession with buying particular individuals that he went for, which was ridiculed at the time as bad eye test or bad talent ID. You then look at the fact that the CEO's now being suspended for insider trading. There's a current investigation going on to Ten Hag's son and the agency that he works at for dodgy dealings. You add it all together, and like I've said about multiple other clubs in this circumstance, there's no smoke without fire. At the very least, it must be investigated. It must be looked at. But what's really positive for me is that Ineos are already all over this, according to the people I've spoken to today, and they're not having any of it. And that's the positive for Man United fans, is that if this all does come out, the good element is the people that are going to be running the club from the summer are going to have no connection to this because it's new people. But this is the type of stuff that needs to stop. Because it basically applies to that weird logic some football fans have of, it's not my money, just pay whatever's needed to sign players. Should never be the case. We should never be advocating for our clubs to continually play over market value for players, because it leads to this type of thing being able to happen. because we're just so blasé to how much money's being spent. If he's a £30 million player and you're dropping 80, 90 million pound on him, that should be red flags to everybody from moment one. And let's not pretend. And again, it's all allegations right now, but let us not act like there isn't corruption in all sports at every level right across this planet. To think that it isn't at the highest end of football, especially when it comes to transfers and agents, I think you're deluding yourself. There's a United fan called Lucky in here that's saying this channel's waffle. It's not waffle. I know you're a Man United fan and you don't like this story, but for me, there's someone involved at my club who is hurting our club by overpaying for players. I want it out. I want this news out. I don't want it.
What could happen here, though, Tel? What do you think could happen here? Like, what could the punishment be?
Do you know what? Let's just do it on the guise that it's not the club brown enveloping to sign players they shouldn't. If we've cheated to sign players and we've done things against FIFA and UEFA's regulations to sign players, it could be transfer bans or point deductions for us if we've done that. If it's the other end, which feels more likely that we're overpaying for players, I don't know if it's against... I don't know what laws of the game it breaks in terms of punishing Manchester United. But it still could. I mean, ignorance is probably not a good enough excuse, is it? So it depends on the level here, but there could be anything from transfer bans to points deductions to individual bans. So agents losing licenses, managers being suspended. You know, if it turns out Ten Hag is aware the club are overpaid by £100 million for players to line the pocket of his son, I can't imagine UEFA and FIFA letting him just manage. I can't imagine.
Here's the thing, though. Who signed this off at United, right? Because I'm looking at his stats here, hadn't it? And what did Ollie say? Ollie said in that overlap thing that they valued him at, what, 30 million quid when he was there?
Yes.
Yeah, so in the time that Ollie left and Anthony signed him, he went up basically 60 mil. In the year before United signed him, I know football's not all about G&A before someone tries to cook me. You know, he got 12 G&A in the Eredivisie. So who has signed that off? Who has looked at that and gone, okay, you're the manager, you can make the signings. But just FYI, why are we paying 90 million euros for a guy that got 12 GA in the Eredivisie? Do you know what I mean? Like that. Oh, LB, look at the year before. 17. It's not
mate, you're spot on. And this goes back to what I've said for years. When you have non-footballing people making footballing decisions, this happens. We've all watched, you know, Gordon Ramsay's Kitchen Nightmares. I watch a great show called with Taffa, which is called Bar Rescue, where people that don't know how to run restaurants or how to run bars buy them and ruin them. This is what Man United have done as a football club. The owners came in, once Sir Alex and David Gill left, bankers and accountants started running the football club and making football decisions. And this is what happens. Because at the end of the day, tell me an industry you know very little, a working class normal industry you know nothing about, LB. Do you know much about plumbing and gas engineering in a house? Okay.
No.
So a well-spoken plumber and gas engineer could probably make you pay thousands of pounds more to fix something than is necessary if he's well-spoken and he sells it well, because you don't know what you're doing. And if you haven't got anyone to ask, you'll get fooled. And that is what I feel like happens at Man United all the time. Agents and managers and players, if they're good, if they can articulate themselves well, they've been able to convince the Woodwards and the Richard Arnolds and all of these bankers and these accountants, they've been able to convince them of whatever they like, because they don't know what they're looking at, because they're not football people. They haven't got a football education or a pedigree within the game. And that, for me, there's been so many decisions, whether it's overpaying for players, underselling players, you know, everything, right? You know, in terms of going in these different directions all the time. It's just, honestly, it's been absolutely horrendous. So I'm not necessarily surprised to see this.
Yeah, no, I just want to point something else out as well. This is, again, just on the Anthony thing as well. So sorry, just to deviate, but this is just too funny. I just see that he's played 23 games in the Premier League this season and hasn't got a single goal or an assist.
No, he's awful. He's awful, mate. I can't.
I just seen it then, and I was like, "Wait, is that right?"
It will go down as one of the worst signings Manchester United in history. And you've had some. Listen,
and it should be investigated, Potsy. It should be investigated. If Ollie's come out and said they only valued him when he was the manager, they had him on a short. They valued him at 30 million. Yeah, how has it gone from 30 million to 90 million in what, a couple of months?